Guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 8, Episode 32 of our weekly Q&A videos and podcast. It's been a while since we said this, so if you're on YouTube right now, links in the description to access this on all the major podcasting platforms. Might make it a little easier to take us with you to maybe download if you're going to play this without internet, or more conveniently, if you only have one device and you want to play Injustice at the same time that you're listening to this, you can check us out there. And that's how I tend to listen to podcasts, is I do something else, whether it's on my phone or computer. I like to have them up in the background somewhere. So if you don't want to be forced to watch the video, you can go ahead and check those links out.
Right.
We have some housekeeping to do at the start of this. Last week we announced a sort of impromptu challenge, right?
A contest, if you will.
Yeah.
With a prize.
It was at first just a question for people, but then it turned into a contest when we started filming while we were talking about it.
Right.
So we've got a couple of bundles for racial justice and equality to give out. And the cool thing about those is that there's an absolute ton of games in them. So we've had those for a while back. It's a good opportunity if people have computers out of the people who entered. So we're going to go through some of the answers. We're going to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about how the people who won can collect their stuff.
And I just want to say one thing before we start, though. That this episode, we're going to do a double crystal run. And this episode is going to last as long as it takes us to finish the crystal. So this is going to make the visual part of this video, I think, more interesting, because everybody takes a little bit of different time. Some people struggle with a little bit. These are all elite crystals. Double crystal run. No cuts, no edits. Let's see how fast we can go.
Yeah, so there we go. So we're going to go chronologically in order of people who had guesses. First one comes from Cinemax Streams Pigman.
That's the other way. I think that's the latest one.
That's the latest one. I got to go all the way down.
Recent, yeah.
Never mind. Give me 1 second.
So the first one is Gaming with Vez.
There we go. Yeah, Gaming with Vez.
And so I want to point out something that didn't occur to me. And I thought that people would have to use logic and what they saw on the screen to figure it out. Totally legitimate alternative, because it's not like we made a rule against it. Because we ranked in the top 10 in a previous season, people were able to go to that, look at our account with the current team composition, and because we had, at that point, we hadn't switched to Phantom Zone yet, our team from this was still up.
Yeah, so they could actually just research us if they were on Android.
That's right.
Which is totally allowed, right? We didn't make any rule against it. They
never,
got us.
Again, it never occurred to me, but it was a pretty good way to figure stuff out. This is, all right, so this is way back when we had, I think, our first 1 million views, or maybe it was something lower than that. We had a contest, and we wanted to come up with something that people could answer, like as sort of a trivia thing, an informational thing that would be challenging.
Yeah, a skill testing question.
But the problem with skill testing questions in general in the age of the internet is a lot of times, if you're looking for just straight up information, you'll be able to look it up.
Yeah, or it's too hard to expect anybody to know. Right. If the answer's not on the internet, you can't expect a random person to know it.
So back then, our contest was, what's our favorite movie?
Yeah.
And we were accused at the time of, oh, that's a great way to generate more views on your videos.
Yeah.
And it's true. It sort of is, as long as people care about it. And as long as there isn't somebody who already was paying attention when we were doing these videos and we'd only had maybe like a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So this, that's a difficulty in creating questions like this, right?
Yeah.
Because I still remember there was a comic book contest where they had a bunch of comic book questions about all these different comics they'd reviewed.
Yeah.
And whoever answered the most of the questions right won the prize. And so a lot of them you could look up on the internet. And the few that you couldn't, that were in the comics and that they were obscure enough and independent enough, it was a little bit trickier. So I ended up winning the contest, but it was not because I knew a lot of stuff. It's because I did a lot of internet research and I was better at it than most other people.
Yeah, so it was just that things were easy to Google.
Yeah, well, and it was sort of easy to Google, but when you were talking about the interiors, like there's stuff, like when you talk about obscure comic books, at the time when there weren't a lot that were uploaded, if you wanted to find out like plot points or something, you'd almost have to have the comic in front of you to be able to do that. Or you could try to, I ended up making a lot of inferences and guesses based on certain things I could see from reviews, but I was surprised. The prize was really cool. There's a lot of comics and a lot of comic related stuff. Like they even had a bust Like one of those little dynamic forces, little busts of one of the characters. And because the shipping ended up, when the guy who's running the contest realized how much the shipping would be, decided to offer me a credit at one of the online stores instead, which was even better. Yeah. It was cool. Like, but this is the problem with contests, right? And the other problem that we ran into that I guess we can discuss later when we talk about awarding the prizes was, so how do you figure out who to, how do you figure out when you're sending it to somebody to confirm that that's the actual person that you sent it to, that you should send it to, that got the question right, without revealing personal information online?
If we had planned this better, what we would have done is a Google form where you just had to enter your email as part of it, right? But because we did it really spur of the moment and we weren't expecting to give people something until we realized that we could, we had to try to think for a minute to figure out a way that we could get people to... Because we can't just say, if you're the person who won, email us.
Right.
Because then, anybody could just email us.
So that's the danger. So either they can include their personal information in a comment, which reveals personal information, which ain't great. Mm-hmm. They could reach out to us, but then how do they prove who they are? And you had an elegant solution for that.
Yeah. So, anyways, we'll go through the answers quick first. So, Gaming with Vez is our first one, and they looked it up on the leaderboard. And what they said was, for Bane, Tantu, League of Assassins, Adept Knives, and Cloak. For Batgirl, Necron Scythe, Deathcart, and Claw. For Hawkgirl, Killer Croc, Champion Card, Charge Disc.
I think they meant companion. It might have been autocorrect.
Yeah.
They're missing one, though. That's only 8 gears.
They've only reported 8 out of 9 gears, and they said, I saw on the leaderboard. And then later edited to remove that piece of information, I guess, to make it harder for other people to...
And then they added it back in.
Yeah, and then they added it back in.
When I asked them about it.
Yeah. To be fair, if they wanted to make sure that they were the first and only person to get it right, that's fair. But so they were first. Unfortunately, they didn't say all 9. So that was close, and it was smart. It was a really good strategy.
Right.
It just, unfortunately, they didn't quite do their due diligence. They were really close.
Right.
And so then our next one comes from Noah Frank. L, and they say, on Batgirl, Necron Scythe, Masters, Deathcart, and Claw of Horus. On Bane, Tantu Totem, Claw of Destiny, League of Assassins, Knives.
Cloak of Destiny, sorry. Claw of Destiny. That would be kind of cool.
And then an edit, which is Hawkgirl, LexCorp Helmet, Killer Croc Companion Card, Massive Sharpened Teeth.
They had more than 3 guesses.
And then, LexCorp Helmet, 4th Word Godly Mason, 4th Word Godly Helmet. I couldn't figure out Hawkgirl's gear, so it was kind of a guess. So that's 2 options for Hawkgirl.
So if you take the first, like when you do tests, right? Like when people put more answers than they're supposed to, the usual strategy is to only count the first answers, right? Yeah. And dismiss everything. So out of the first 9 answers, that's 7 right, which is still pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, if it had been me trying to guess, it would have been really hard. Yeah. Because you see what Batgirl does, right? She crushes gears. You can see the effect of Master's Deathcart. Yeah. And because of the boosted damage a few times that she's doing Special 1, you can guess that she's going to do... It's going to be either Necron Scythe or Cloak of Destiny. Yeah. And based on the amount of damage... I guess if you look at her stats from the beginning, it's... Actually, we didn't show the stats, but you can see the stats on her card. It's possible to make a guess based on that, who's going to have Necron Scythe or Cloak of Destiny between Batgirl and Bane. Mm-hmm. And I think it should be pretty clear that it's going to be Cloak of Destiny on Bane only because he does so much more damage. Yeah. And Cloak of Destiny has a boosted 50%, but then you'd have to get in calculations or you just make a guess.
Yeah, no, so that was a really good guess.
Right, and so Tantu Totem because Bane gets an extra bar of power tagging in, Cloak of Destiny or Necron Scythe for sure, and Cloak of Destiny in that case. And League of Assassins Knives because you're seeing all the splash damage. Yeah. So those first 6 should be relatively straightforward. Mm-hmm. The hard part is Hawkgirl, and the biggest clue, which a few people picked up on, was her total gear score is only 400. Mm-hmm. So she can't have all 3 legendary gears. So unfortunately, even though Noah Frankel got 7 right... One of the mistakes in the guesses was all the guesses for her gears were all, I believe, legendary 150-point gears. So that would have made it harder to get it right. Mm-hmm. Good guess, though.
Wait, Massive Sharpened Teeth.
Oh, my mistake. My error. I picked on Noah unfairly.
Yeah, the second guess was all the 4th world stuff and LexCorp Helmet.
Yeah, you're right. Massive Sharpened Teeth. Yeah. It is not legendary gear. That would have fit for the 400 score. You're right.
Yeah. So there we go. So our next comment comes from Aiden Costa. Their guest for Luchador Bane was Tantu Totem, League of Assassins, Knives, and Cloak of Destiny. For Batgirl, Master's Death Card. Sorry.
You want to stick Claw everywhere.
Yeah, Master's Death Card, and then Claw of Horus, and Necron Scythe. And then we have on Hawkgirl, LexCorp Helmet, Fourth World Helmet, Fourth World Chestplate.
So 6 out of 9, not bad. The gears on Hawkgirl weren't quite right. Same point of has
a little
to get
too
at least
high,
one
yeah.
not legendary gear. Yeah.
So Cena Clark had a guess. We'll just say the name because some right, some wrong. Let's go to maybe
the same
yeah.
issue, right? So where people were getting it right was the relatively
Bane and
easiest part.
Batgirl.
Like if you're using it right, Bane and Batgirl.
Yeah.
And it's not,
but still, observant.
Yes, exactly. And I think part of it is that this loadout for Bane, which we've been doing for years. I mean, we even did before Bane was, actually even the first person we used this with was Batgirl.
Mm-hmm.
And that loadout of Cloak of Destiny, League of Assassins Knives before Tantu Totem was available. And once Tantu Totem was available, this is clearly the nuke, the single one-hit KO, tons of splash damage option. It's pretty typical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there we go. Our next comment, comes from Yang Cheyenne, and they say, and this is a good one because there's an explanation of why. So I like this one.
Yeah.
They say, Batgirl, I think Necron Scythe, Death Cart, because I see the effect of it, and Claw of Horus, because I see the Shadow Gear effect. So that's 3 right so far. Luch Bane gear setup is what most people use, even Scopos, and that is Cloak of Destiny, League of Assassins Knife, and Totem. Hawkgirl, I think Killer Croc, Soda, and Static Gear Card. But you can give other people a chance, because I already know your gear setup before this video upload. I saw it on leaderboard before the hack raid into top of all. I took a screenshot of it, but haven't used the team because I don't have Cloak of Destiny for Bane.
So it's sort of, I think there's even a better answer later, but this is totally legitimate, right? Like we said, the key was figuring it out. I think just because the obvious answer that we'd been thinking people would try would be to take a look at the screen. It was really quite a hard question.
Yeah, the fact that you have a screenshot of our leaderboard, right?
I think that was smart.
Fine. Yeah,
I think that was smart.
That's totally loud.
So that's the first completely correct answer with all 9 gears.
So we'll tell you how you can collect your stuff if you want it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, you can ignore this, or ideally in the comments or somewhere, let us know that you're fine if you don't want the bundle. If you do want the bundle, you have a couple different options. The most sort of internet secure one is to send us an email saying your name, and in it somewhere you just need to send us a screenshot that is from your user profile. So when you're on your YouTube homepage, if you click on the change account button, what it'll do, or just the account button, what it'll do is it'll show your profile picture, it'll show your YouTube name, it'll show your email. And so if you send us an email, just pop a screenshot in there that proves of that information, and that's how we'll be able to figure out that you're definitely you. And that way the only person that has your email is us to send you your stuff, and you don't have to send anything personal.
Right.
You can also drop, the easiest thing to do is under the same account, you can drop your email in the comments, but that you have to be willing to post your email, and then afterwards, once soon as we've sent it to you, you can delete your comment. Right. So those are your 2 options if you want. So you can hit us up, and we will happily give this to you, even if you've looked at the leaderboard.
Right. And I do want to point... So this is a discussion that I was sort of saving for when we do the video of just showing this team fighting.
Yeah.
But I want to point out that it is... The principle is right. Everybody's thinking right. That Hawkgirl's a tank. She's got not a lot of offensive potential. And the key is reducing damage.
Yeah.
We've said before, Astro Harness is the ultimate sort of platonic ideal of a tank card. But the reason she's not here is because you would lose the first invulnerability. She's in first slot. You could put her not in first slot, but then you're taking one of the guys, whether it's Batgirl or Bane, that you would want to tag in for the effect.
Yeah.
Not being able to tag in. And so you're limited to what you're going to do. And so if she's going to be first slot, and you're blowing the first invulnerability anyways, where you don't have control to tag her in to eat either a big special or a super, then you lose a bunch of the effectiveness of Astro Harness.
Mm-hmm.
So the next comment actually I think might be my favorite, only because, like you said, the rationale really matters, and it goes into the thinking, and I like this answer.
So this is Evan Pratt. And they say, so I'm going to say definitely Bane has Tantu Totem because all that power. Cloak of Destiny because of the stun chance. And all that. Finally, I'm going to say League of Assassins Adept Knives because the gear score is 450. And the use was only special 1, which it buffs. So that's exactly right. And
the only thing I would add is the most obvious clue that's League of Assassins Knives is the splash damage that you see on screen. So we've got on our screen, we have the numbers that always show.
Yeah.
So you can see as soon as it hits, there's a buttload of splash damage on the opponent's team.
Batgirl has Master's Death Guard, obviously. The other two that I'm gonna, Claw of Horus, because the breaking gear and maybe the damage tagging. Her final gear, I'm gonna say, is Necron Scythe, because she revived after kill with 50%, with 50%.
Yeah, after kill with 50% health. So that's perfect. That is the absolute clue that you can do to differentiate between the two. Like, again, the harder part would have been to try to calculate damage where one gets more damage.
Yeah.
But because of that, like the fact that she revived, she doesn't have 2 gear slots taken up with Fourth World gear.
Yeah.
There's no other way she's going to be reviving like that. Yeah.
And then they say Hawkgirl has, I'm going to say she's built not to take damage. With that in mind, I'm definitely going to say Disc is the gear that makes her 400 gear score and not 450. For the other two, personally, what I would do, and therefore what I'm going to guess, is Fourth World Chestplate and Killer Croc, Suicide Squad. The other gear that I think of in the mix is Gingold Soda. And so, Fourth World Chestplate was not it. Gingold Soda was it. However, that's mainly basic and crit, and I assume the best option is reducing special damage. Thanks, guys.
So that was your editorial in the middle there, saying that, which one was?
Is that you made technically 10 guesses,
right?
And 9 out of 10 are right.
Right, and the first 9, there were 8 right. But I like this answer enough that I think if we've got another reward or prize package, we can send that. So, Evan, you can reach out to us too, along with Yong Chien.
Yeah, so same thing.
Chien? You know, let us know how to pronounce your name
Yong
too.
Chien.
I'm always curious about that. Okay.
So, we were only going to do one, but I think we can do 2 here. One for the first one right, and another one just because that's a really good, thorough explanation.
Yeah.
And I think it's also really impressive to have guessed that based off of, like, actually clearly, like, just watching in logic. Right. And so I think that's definitely impressive in its own right.
It shows the observational skills plus a facility with Injustice as a game to be able to pull those things out to say, hey, these are the things I'm thinking of because of these reasons. And in this case where I don't know, because of your approach to the character, this is what I'm going to guess as the possibility. That's cool. I like
and so then this way nobody's robbed for not checking the leaderboard too, right? As the first guess that was, in a vacuum also gets it.
Right.
So we've got another comment from Nombre2702. They say for Bane, Tantu Totem, Cloak of Destiny, League of Assassins Knife, Batgirl, Master's Death Cart, Claw of Horse, and Necron Scythe. And like everybody else, they say, so far it was easy. However, for Hawkgirl, I'm guessing she has some sort of damage reduction gear or revive gear, so we'll give a few options. These are for the 5-star gears. Option 1, 2 pieces of the Fourth World set, to be more precise, the chestplate and the helmet. Option 2, Killer Croc Companion card combined with the soda. And then option 3, Killer Croc Companion card or the soda combined with Batman Ninja helmet. And then they say this is the least probable one. So if you're keeping track so far, Bane and Batgirl were right, and then option 2, which is Killer Croc Companion card combined with a soda.
Right, for the 2 legendary gears, right? So far, so good.
Yeah. I'd like to add that since there is 4-star gear, I also have a few options. These are for the 4-star gear.
3.5 is what we call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Option 1, blocking gear such as Amazonian Sword and Shield or Charged Disc, and Charged Disc is right. And then option 2, something that blocks enemy specials like Comically Long Pistol or Deadshot's Ballistic Mask. So this one's good. It's that same sort of breaking it down, right? Where clearly this person doesn't know, and it's really hard to guess, right? It's almost impossible to guess just based off of nothing, right? Which is what we saw. Like, even our best guesses here can't narrow it down 100% of the way.
Right.
And so it is getting a little bit lucky. So we're not going to give anything out for this one just because,
Well, in terms of the category of right, it's as close as Evan, but it was just later.
Yeah.
So we've got a limit to how
and
far
a couple more things to guess.
Yeah.
It's been expanded a little bit, but a good answer and a good rationale. We really like that one too.
Yeah.
And then we had one from Cinemax Streams Pigman, which I tried to say initially with no rationale, but had gotten everything right. and pulled everything correctly. So
just too late. That's
all. Thanks for entering. So that just to rehash, Evan Pratt and Yang Cheyenne, you can go ahead and get in touch with us. We'll probably include the winners' names in the description too, just to make it easier.
Right. And our email is the business email.
Yeah, BDCKR@hotmail.com.
Yeah.
If you want to contact us. That's a good thing to say too. So yeah, congrats to everybody. I guess we talked for a while about this.
It's fun. I think this is interesting. This is more injustice content than we've had for a while.
But yeah, we appreciate everybody entering. And I wasn't expecting people to go so in depth with it, right? Because there's people who are clearly really actively engaging and watching and looking for clues throughout it.
Yeah.
And so I hope it was fun for you guys to enter, because it was fun for us to read through, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Even by the people who found the loophole, right? I'm surprised that people engaged with it and said, oh, I know what I could do, right? And I don't even want to say pulled one over on us, because it's totally fair, but circumvented what we thought we were doing.
I like to call it lateral thinking.
Yeah.
They're getting the answer within the rules, but not in the most obvious way.
Yeah. And as a glitch channel, I think we really have to respect that.
Oh yeah, for
right?
sure.
I think we'd be a huge hypocrite if we didn't respect that, even though the first person who got everything right said that we could give it away to somebody else, right? Because they saw it based on the leaderboard. But yeah, no, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that they knew it before our video, and that they had a screenshot of it, which indicates that they actually went and looked at it and were thinking of getting that information later for making a team based off of it.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody to be willing to say that, I think that makes me even more wanting to give you something for it, because it sounds like you're building your team based off of ours, and we really appreciate that. That's like a pretty high compliment. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So there we go. That's the contest, and then we have more Injustice content. We're only going to be talking about Injustice today, I think.
Really? I want to talk about some other stuff.
Oh, I guess so. At the end, depending on what we have time for. Yeah. For most of the video, anyways. It's already for a good chunk of it. Mike Hill says, who is better as a tank, Killer Croc or the Merciless?
Okay. So the first step is, I mean, when you talk about tanks, part of it's going to be their health stat. And you can always manipulate them depending on how you want your team set up to have similar health stats. Mm-hmm. So the key to me is looking at their passives and other ways that you could make gear work for them.
Yeah.
So to me, all right, so Merciless's passive is Strength of War. Once the Merciless lands 12 to 7 consecutive hits in a row without being hit, his next special will be unblockable. Not defensive, not tank. Next part is the Merciless and teammates gain 5 to 10% armor on tag-in.
Yeah.
And evolved...
Wait, is that 5 upgrading to 10%?
I think so. I
think it is. I think it's 10% armor on tag-in. Like, I don't think it's a range.
Alright, so evolve. For every dark power bar used, the Merciless and teammates gain 5 to 15% armor.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of armor.
So on tag-in, you get 10%. And then using dark power, you can gain 15% armor when he's maxed out. Right. So you're talking about tag-in, and then a special would give you 25%.
Right.
So it's good.
Yeah,
it's kind of like healing.
I actually don't even know whether it has to be his dark power user or anybody on the team who's got dark power. I mean, that sort of makes a difference. It sort of doesn't. Arkham Killer Croc, Apex Predator. Killer Croc gains armor when he tags in or does a special attack. Arkham characters' special attack use also give Killer Croc armor.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't say how much armor. How much armor I actually don't know.
I feel like it's less than 10%.
It probably is.
But I'm not sure. It just, knowing how like big it is on the bar, it feels like it's like 5% maybe.
So based on just reading it without any context of without playing characters, and I'll get into actually playing with them, it seems like Merciless should be a better tank.
Yeah, and that makes sense because he's also a hotter commodity. He's rare.
Metal character. However, based on play, I know that getting armor on tag-in, that element is actually relatively poor.
Yeah.
Because the fights don't last long enough. I mean, if you have a fight that lasts a long time, that's different. But fights don't last long enough. There's not enough tag-ins and tag-outs. And if you're playing the game to do that, and let's say you do like we did on our team with Hawkgirl.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, tag-ins might make a big difference. But then you're just tagging in another tank in and out. That's a waste of a slot on your team.
Yeah.
So the key part will be how they gain it without tag-out, which is dark power. Dark power, even when you maxed evolved your metal characters, gain slower, If you add the new 52, I think is Black Adam, is the one that boosts the dark power generation. It still doesn't generate nearly as fast as superpower. Or sorry, like not superpower, special power, like regular power. And
it's pretty slow.
And you don't get the benefit of it from Tattoo Totem.
Yeah.
So I think even though the number is lower, if you're really using a tank the way we do, where it's sort of backup, he's not the main character, right? And you've got a secondary Arkham Knight character, not secondary, but somebody who's not Killer Croc, coming in, do specials over and over and over again before he tags in, and you need to bring him as a tank if you're buying a little bit of time to let people build up some power before they come back, because, they're weak.
Yeah.
Then I think this is actually... Arkham Killer Croc is the better tank because there's more situations where he's effective, and it's easier to make him effective with the regular play without having to go out of your way to generate more armor.
So that's saying that Arkham Killer Croc is more effective as a tank. One thing to also keep in mind for the Merciless is that teammates also gained that armor, right? On tag in. So if you're trying to make everybody a little bit hardier, if you're at a point where you very rarely need a tank, but every once in a while have one of your teammates getting knocked out, the Merciless does a better job of making your entire team hardier. Yeah. So that's the one thing to consider too, is that if you're not
answering that specific question, if you're not answering the question literally as it is, but thinking about how do you give more tank ability to your team,
then the Merciless also has a little bit more edge. So as a tank by themselves, it's one thing, but as a support character that makes everybody a little bit juicier, a little bit, have a little bit more health, then the Merciless has more of an edge in that department that gets sort of, that isn't as obvious when you're just considering them by themselves.
I think the amount of armor, you're right, Merciless seems like in play gives more armor each time. Yeah. The problem is dark power doesn't generate fast enough the way regular power does. Yeah. And tag in, tag out is just too much. Like in a given game, if the way we normally play it, the only tag-ins you can get is when the opponent's teammate gets knocked out. And in fights where we're not as effective, then you maybe have at most 2 or 3 more tag-ins. Yeah. And it's just not enough to make a difference. Yeah.
So there we go. Arkham Killer Croc is our short answer, but it's a little more complicated than that. Yeah. So that is our Injustice stuff. I guess we have a few minutes.
Okay. So here's the thing. A couple of things that occurred to me because we were doing a little bit of cleaning. Yeah. And digging around in some stuff, I found the original series of Bionicle toys. Yeah. And what's interesting to me is, because I wouldn't have thought it seems like it's a little bit soon for this to be happening. So I looked up, they were unopened. They're still sealed. 2 of them, the red guy and the green guy. I can't remember their names. And I looked up on eBay what they're selling for, because the big mistake people make when they want to see how much something is worth is, well, what are people listing it at? Which you don't know.
Who cares?
Who's going to pay for that?
You could put a Cheeto on eBay tomorrow for $20,000. That doesn't. It has nothing to do with the value. Right.
So I actually looked at the ones that have sold. Yeah. And what's crazy to me is that there have been sealed Bionicles that have sold for $150. Yeah. And that seems like the range, give or take. Some have sold for more, some have sold for maybe a little bit less. Yeah. In my mind, because that was only released in 2001. Yeah. So
it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
Or 20... Yeah, 20 years.
So typically what happens is that when the people who become nostalgic for toys from their childhood start having more disposable income, that's when that kind of collectible goes up in value. So let's say you were 10 years old when that happened. This is 20 years after that. Yeah. So maybe 30. It seems like...
Early.
It seems early, yeah. It feels to me like a lot of times that kind of cycle happens about 40 and 50. And I think what's happened is that the pandemic has sort of accelerated that cycle where people are spending more time at home, spending more time not at work. Maybe if they're able to work from home, have disposable income that they can't spend on going on trips. Yeah. On going out for dinner.
Some people have less disposable income, but some people actually have more.
And more time to look up stuff. Yeah. So I've seen this in other collectible areas, say for original comic book art, where the prices have skyrocketed in the last 2 years. Yeah. Way more in the last 2 years than they did in the 10 or even 15 years before that. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a big effect from the pandemic, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And Bionicle specifically, because I remember picking those up when they were $7 a pop.
Yeah. Not that expensive.
Yeah, they were not... they were cool.
Yeah, I was looking at the packaging, and just the way that they have two sleeves. They have that sort of internal sleeve and external sleeve on the packaging.
Yeah.
That's the main sort of product info, but you can slide it around, and there's a couple of viewport windows into the stuff underneath, so you can look at like the masks, and you can look at just on one area it's just like art, like just scrolling art of like a battle. Like that's a cool package design for a kid.
It was.
Like I've seen toys, right? Like, or like children's books that operate on that same thing where you've got like a little viewing window and you turn a dial. But to have that just as literally the box that something comes in, and then on the spot on the top to have a place that you can display the mask.
Yeah.
That you get inside of it, and having the mask as a collectible thing. Like it's smart, it's well designed. The box looks pretty cool. Yeah. And like even, you know, obviously the box doesn't look as cool to me as it did when I was a child, but I can acknowledge that the box looks cool now.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't sort of give me that sense of wonder that it would have as a child. Like I look at that and I'm like, wow, that seems like the kind of thing if I saw it on a store shelf. Like that looks a lot nicer than like toy box blister packs. Like it's got a way sort of more aesthetic design.
It totally holds up.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah. It's a smart bit of even just package design. And I remember the toys being pretty fun.
Yeah.
Right? They were sort of that halfway in between, not quite Transformers, because they didn't lock in a really sort of compact way. And they didn't turn into two things, but just the way that you could... They were very tactile and kinetic, and they did sort of roll up and do stuff.
Right.
And it felt like, as far as toys went, like it's that really interesting mix of sort of bust-apartable, but it's got the ruggedness of Lego.
Yeah, it's modular, right? Like it's so to me, Lego with the bricks is that's sort of what defines. Not that it's bricks; it's modular. Yeah. And they even had a plan in the little booklets where you could take all of them and build one huge Bionicle. Yeah, that was great. It's like a Voltron.
That's cool. Yeah, it's like a lot of what's appealing about like Transformers toys, but with that little bit of extra like being able to build it, right? And then being able to like take it apart if you wanted to have like one of your guys destroyed for something.
Right.
And just that little bit of extra being able to muck around with it. What you lose in it not being like really sort of tight and specific and pre-made like a Transformer, you make up for in that sort of Lego cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a cool product, and I can see why people are nostalgic for it. That's a lot of money. We might have to
sell some of that.
Sell off our Bionicles because it's cool, but I don't know if it's $150 to keep it in its box cool.
Yeah. I got to dig around in the crawl space and see what else we got.
Yeah.
All right. I had a few other things I want to talk about, but we are out of footage. That was a super fast double run. Not the fastest single run, but as it's two runs in a row.
Average, yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. That's the end of our video this week. Shout out to Eliza, the Moral Hunter Caton. It's foraging season, and she's on the lookout for shrooms. That's Moral spelled Morel, not Moral. And this shout out was brought to you by an urge to return to nature. Last year, she made like mushroom teas and stuff, and went out and like did some foraging at least a couple times.
Yeah, I love mushrooms.
I love mushrooms a lot too.
When I was young, I ate so much mushrooms that my mom was always surprised when I could tell the difference between mushrooms that had come from a can and mushrooms that had been rehydrated. And I guess the fresh mushrooms too. They all had a different texture. They all had similar flavors, even if they're the exact same type of mushrooms. But it made such a... You know what it's like? It's like when you drink so much alcohol that you can tell the difference between certain kinds of, say, whiskey or whatever. Because you just have so much experience with it that they all have their own...
You're a mushroom connoisseur.
I am a mushroom
connoisseur.
Apparently,
foraged mushrooms, when you eat them the same day that they've been picked, are really, really good. Like fresh in a way that you can't get anywhere else.
Wow.
Yeah, and so morals, I know I saw something. I've been looking at foraging stuff a little bit too. And there was like a high-end restaurant where they literally had their chefs like go out and do like a little bit of like morning foraging so that they could use stuff in their dishes. Nice. And they didn't like outsource it. They just had like places near the restaurant where the chefs would go and forage. In secret spots. Anyways, we'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon.
And that would be Console Peasant and Edwoon at the top tier last word, Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier, Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, Eddydoo, all at the credited level, and Chris Wolf, Scarlett Danny, Awesome Gamer 2for1, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E at the gratitude level.
Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.